You guys take a long look at me. And not too long, maybe feel a little uncomfortable. Now imagine me 5 years ago and 60 pounds heavier. I had a diet that would make a cardiologist cringe. And one of my favorite things to do was not to get a double, but a triple from Wendy's with bacon and cheese, a huge order of fries, and finish that off with a nice big chocolate frosty. Now that's a balanced meal. But all my doctor's appointments ended the same way. Mr. Nielsen, you're a little bit overweight, your cholesterol's high, your blood pressure's high, and your heart rate's a little high. Have you thought about diet and exercise? No, not really. You see, most of my life, I had not seen any red lights, but I had seen a lot of yellow lights. And we all know what we do when we see yellow lights. We run them, don't we? And we all have that same look in our face when we run them. Yeah. Well, that all changed when I turned 39 years old. It was my birthday, and I went up to Dallas to celebrate with family and friends. And we did one of my most favorite things to do. We went to a Mexican food restaurant to celebrate. And when you go to a Mexican food restaurant, you're not just getting a meal, it's an event. And you start off, of course, with the chips and queso, and you eat and eat and eat and eat, and the mystery is you never get filled up. And then, of course, you have the appetizer, which is the big pile of nachos. You finish that off, and then, of course, the coup de grace, the pièce de résistance, the burrito, right? And I had one that was about as big as my head, pretty big. Finished that off, and then, of course, I had to have dessert, right? That chocolate on chocolate piece of cake, and I'm just for some reason I sat there for a second just looking at it and thinking to myself, you know, I really shouldn't eat this. And somebody made some stupid joke about death by chocolate, and I go, haven't heard that before. And then I finished it off. And then about 20 minutes later, I started not feeling very well. And it wasn't my stomach, it was my heart. And my heart started to race. And I thought, that's weird, that's never happened before. And I ignored it. So then I drove back from Dallas to Austin, and 3.5 hours later, my heart was still racing. I thought, wow, that's interesting. So I started down to Walgreens to sit in one of those machines, and you know how I press it down your arm, and it's a little bit uncomfortable, you wait, and all zeros popped up. Well, that's a little weird. So I tried it again. All zeros again. So I asked the guy behind the counter, I said, is there anything wrong with this machine? He said, well, I don't know. So I just ignored that. Flew right past that, and I went home. There was a lot of yellow lights going on that night, and I can't really tell you what I did. Heart rate was racing, so I went and watched a movie. I ignored it. Then I went and read a book, and I continued ignoring it. You might think, well, Glenn, that's a little crazy. You know, I came from a family where you didn't go to the doctors unless you were dying. Well, I didn't realize that I actually was dying, and my heart was out of control. And I didn't do anything until about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm laying in bed, my heart's still racing, and I'm sweating profusely. So I went to the hospital, went to the emergency room. You know how it is when you go to the emergency room, no matter what day of the week or what time of the day that you're waiting 3 hours. So I go in, the nurse is checking me out, and she hooks me up. And she sees my heart rate at 170, 180 beats a minute. She has to check it twice just to make sure it's right. They immediately check me in the hospital. There's doctors around me, nurses, they're sticking all kinds of tubes in me and pumping me with drugs. The doctor says, we need to get your heart rate down in 24 hours. And I'm the kind of person, I always want to know what the next step is. Well, doctor, what if you can't get my heart rate down in 24 hours? What's going to happen? And he says, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to, what? It wasn't real clear what the next step was. But I just ignored that. 15 hours went by. The heart rate had not gone down. 20 hours had gone by. It still had not gone down. 23 hours, they started to prepare for the next step. What they were going to do is they were going to reboot my heart. They were going to stop it and restart it. And I wasn't aware of that. And at 23.5 hours, my heart rate went back to normal. And I had 2 more days to just lay in that hospital bed and to think about my life and where I was. I left that hospital room and thought, I gotta make some changes. And over the next 3.5 months, I lost 55 pounds. My cholesterol dropped 100 points. My heart rate, my blood pressure, all went back to normal. So I went back to the cardiologist, and I'm in there, and he couldn't even recognize me. He's like, you know, you the same person? He says, you look great. You haven't had any other problems. I think we need to put a pacemaker in you. I think I told him where he needed to stick that pacemaker. But then he proceeded to try to frighten me. He said, well, my 12-year-old neighbor didn't get this done, and he dropped dead, 12 years old. I had a couple of athletes that I knew that and they dropped dead. And I left there angry and frustrated. There were several things I learned from that experience. And the first thing was, don't let someone fear you into making a decision. I don't know what that doctor's agenda was. I don't know if his malpractice insurance was going up, and the odds were better for him than they were for me. I'm not really sure. And the second thing is that I had this weird philosophy in life. If someone asked me a question, I gave an answer. Well, guess what? You don't have to. You can take time to think and reflect. And I went and got a second opinion. Got a different answer. The third thing is, probably the most important thing, if you see those yellow lights in your life, you need to slow down. It might mean your life. I'm a Toastmaster.